Journey into Health 10-Day Cleanse. My name is Christica and I am your host. And I am really excited and proud of you for making your health a priority, for signing up to do this cleanse. Our health is gold. And I truly believe that food is medicine. And I was able to put my Hashimoto's autoimmune disease into remission, get off thyroid medication, get my adrenal glands back to 100% and have a baby at age 46 eating this way. This diet is incredibly healing. It helps to heal and seal the gut, while also be cleansing our liver, and it helps our whole digestive system to be nourished. It helps us because we're slowing down and our body is able to just work on what it needs to do in order to heal. The intention of this video is to go over foods that we will be eliminating for the 10 days and why. And I'll also talk about what foods we will be eating and why. So without further ado, let's go into the slideshow.
The first food that we're going to be eliminating is any food that contains gluten. Gluten is the protein in wheat, rye, and barley. No one can digest it. It doesn't break down in the stomach. And after it leaves the stomach unbroken down, it creates a negative charge, which causes wear and tear on our villi and microvilli in our small intestines. Gluten is not the same as what our ancestors ate. It has been so genetically modified that the amount of chromosomes are quadrupled in the original einkorn grain. To make things worse, gluten is usually doused with Roundup to make harvesting easier. So these two things, pesticides and gluten, are the two biggest causes of leaky gut. Not only that, but it creates all over inflammation. And if someone has leaky gut and gluten gets into the bloodstream, it can actually cross the blood-brain barrier. Doctors are finding over 300 symptoms are related to gluten intolerance or just eating gluten in general. Some people have a gluten sensitivity while others are allergic to it. Tests aren't very accurate in determining if you're celiac with an allergy or if you're sensitive to it. The best way is by doing an elimination diet like what you're doing on this cleanse. So when you eliminate gluten for 10 days, your body does a lot of healing and repair work in its intestinal tract. Then when you bring gluten back in, you can really see if you're sensitive to it or not. There are no grains on the cleanse. I already talked about gluten-containing grains like wheat, rye, and barley, and also no corn, oats, or rice. The only exception being GABA rice because it's been germinated to remove lectins so that it's easier to digest. This also means no corn or corn products. Look at ingredient labels for cornstarch because corn is in a lot of different things. I want to take a moment to talk about the genetic modification of corn in particular. So if you're buying commercial corn, that seed has been genetically modified with pesticides injected into it. So what happens is when the corn matures and ripens, insects go to eat the corn, their stomachs explode. So my question is, what is that doing to our stomachs and our intestines and digestive system? Cannot be a good thing. Other illegal foods on the cleanse are soy and soy products. One of the most genetically modified crops is soy, and it's very high in estrogen. So this can cause hormonal imbalances, lowering testosterone in men, and contribute to issues like endometriosis in women. So the next thing, coffee is one of the hardest things for people to give up on the cleanse. I get it. I love coffee, and it does have benefits. It wakes us up. It helps us eliminate. It stimulates ourselves to get a lot done. But it is good to give ourselves a break, especially our adrenal glands. So drinking coffee is like pushing down the gas pedal, causing release of cortisol and putting us into sympathetic nervous system. But on the cleanse, we really want to switch into parasympathetic nervous system because this brings us into a more relaxed state of being, and it helps put our bodies into a place where we can heal and we can repair. Coffee also thins our liver cells and it thins the walls of our intestinal lining. So it's not a good idea to drink coffee if you have any digestive issues, and it's definitely not good to drink it every day. Other foods that we're eliminating are alcohol. That really goes without explaining. Lots of sugar there, very difficult for our liver to process alcohol. We're eliminating farmed fish because it's fed grains, it has dyes, and it's a very toxic environment. We are eliminating any foods with natural flavors or artificial flavoring. Sometimes they sneak in MSG under those labels. Illegal oils include any vegetable oil like corn oil or soybean oil and canola oil. So these oils are highly refined and go rancid. They create a lot of inflammation and harmful effects on our health. So we're eliminating polysaccharide vegetables like potatoes and sweet potatoes because they are a more complex sugar and very starchy, so they are not on the cleanse. We will also be eliminating sugar on the cleanse. Sugar is in almost everything these days. You can find it in yogurt and pasta sauce and barbecue sauce, you name it. It's really important to look at labels and make sure that there's no sugar added to whatever you're buying. Even things like bacon often have sugar in the ingredients. If you think, oh, I don't eat that much sugar, remember that grains also turn to sugar. If you're drinking apple juice or orange juice in the morning, that is all sugar. So the biggest problem with sugar is that it robs our body of precious minerals, especially magnesium. And when we're eating things that contain fructose, it's a lot harder for our liver to process. Alcohol especially, because our body does not need alcohol, really damages the liver and it can create a fatty liver. So how do you know if you have a fatty liver? One telltale sign is belly fat. And what it does is it creates visceral fat, which is fat around the organs, which is also related to heart disease. They've found that sugar is more addictive than cocaine and activates the same part of the brain as cocaine. So sugar addiction is incredibly hard to break. I know because I struggled with sugar addiction for many years and it was really destroying my health. While on the cleanse, if you feel like you're craving sugar, especially after a meal, there are some things that you can do. On the cleanse, you're going to be eating a lot of nutrient-dense foods, so that is going to replenish your body of minerals. You can also take a magnesium supplement, and eating foods that are bitter will help to balance the craving for sweets. Another thing that you can do is have a bite of protein or drink a glass of water. There's another herb that I like to recommend for people who are fighting sugar addiction. It's called gymnema, and this herb is incredibly bitter. I hold it in my mouth for about 10 seconds and then I swallow it, and it really helps to rebuild the beta cells in your pancreas and fight against sugar cravings. So highly recommend that. Standard Process has a really good herbal supplement that you can get, or there are other brands as well. Sometimes it's not even us that's craving sugar. So I want to take a minute to talk about parasites. So in my case, I had 5 different kinds of parasites in my body, and they were actually craving sugar. So sometimes what we have in our gut is actually creating a craving for something. So it may be a good idea to get a stool sample done to identify if you think you have parasites, if you do, what kind, and then target those specifically according to different protocols. For example, if you have a candida yeast overgrowth, there are certain remedies that you can follow to take care of that problem. If you have bacteria, or if you have a parasitic worm or something like that, like hookworms, then there are certain things that you can do in order to mitigate that problem. One of the biggest reasons to find out what's going on and if your microbiome is balanced or not is these parasites can create such a toxic load in our bodies. They create lipopolysaccharides. Little pieces of shit is actually what they are, lipopolysaccharides, and they get into all systems of our body and really wreak havoc. So it's important to take care of this problem, and it can be causing all kinds of symptoms that you may be dealing with. On the cleanse, we will also be eliminating any foods with lactose. Lactose is the sugar in milk, and it is incredibly mucus forming. Always avoid commercial milk because it's full of antibiotics, and also BGH, which is the bovine growth hormone. So these cows are milked all day long. They are abnormally large. Their udders are so unnaturally huge that they almost touch the ground. They're milked so much that they form blisters on their udders, and that pus gets into the milk along with the antibiotics and along with the bovine growth hormone. So we all know that antibiotics, anti is against, and biotics means life. So antibiotics are destroying the life in your gut, destroying the beneficial bacteria. So when you're eating cheese or any dairy products, ice cream, whatever it is, if you're eating it commercially, it's not organic, you're getting some traces of these things inside the food, and we definitely don't want that for the cleanse. So what will we eat on the cleanse? We will eat an anti-inflammatory diet that is incredibly nutrient dense. So starting with meat, you can eat meat, poultry, and all kinds of fish and seafood. So it's very important if you are eating beef or bison that it's grass-fed. If you're eating poultry, chicken, duck, quail is okay. You may want to check and see what they're fed if you're buying them locally or at a farmer's market. If you're buying eggs, you want to make sure they are organic, pasture-raised eggs. And you can also get eggs that are soy-free, which is a good idea. If you're buying fish or seafood, make sure it's wild caught, and this can be a little tricky. I went to Costco the other day and there was a package of salmon and it said wild salmon. So wild salmon is not necessarily wild caught. Wild caught means it's a very sustainable practice and it's more expensive to do it that way. So make sure it says wild caught. All meats are humanely raised without antibiotics or bovine growth hormone. Organ meats are incredibly nutrient dense and filled with important fat-soluble vitamins A and D, as well as essential fatty acids, plus macro and trace minerals. Cultures from around the world have been consuming organ meats in their diets for centuries. They really know the value of these foods. They increase strength and vitality. I remember the story of President Bush going to China, and he was served this delicacy of monkey brain and he threw up. It's unfortunate that we have developed a gross factor to these meats because they are superfoods. When a wild animal goes to hunt its prey and kills its prey, it eats the organ meats first. So if you're squeamish about these foods, you can always buy desiccated liver or desiccated organ meats. So these are just a dried form in a capsule that you can buy. The most important thing about these products, you want to make sure that they are grass-fed, pasture-raised, and as clean as possible. And sometimes I get the question about liver being a filter for the body. So the liver is a filter, but the toxins are not stored in the liver. The liver does not accumulate toxins. It stores vitamins and minerals. That's why it's so incredibly nutrient dense. So toxins are filtered out of the liver. Sometimes they get stored in our fat cells, but most of the time the toxins leave our bodies. Fermented foods and probiotics are a very important part of the cleanse. It's a really good idea to get a wide variety of cultured foods and a wide variety of probiotics when you're doing the cleanse or outside of the cleanse. We have such a diverse microbiome. We have more microbial DNA than we have human DNA. If you took all of the microbes and you added them up, weighed them, it would be about 3 to 4 pounds. So that's why they called our gut the second brain. And there's also a turf war going on. We have beneficial bacteria and yeast, and we also have pathogenic bacteria. When the ratio is 80% good bugs to 20% bad bugs, then it's still a good ratio. But if it gets beyond that, that's when people start having symptoms, severe symptoms and disease. So we want to really get our probiotics in to keep our gut balanced. So the things that you can eat fermented foods wise on the cleanse are fermented dairy, kefir, and yogurt. So kefir is way more probiotic rich than yogurt. Yogurt has about 5 beneficial strands of bacteria, whereas kefir has 50 beneficial forms of bacteria and yeasts. You can also eat sauerkraut or kimchi and other cultured vegetables. Try to get cultured vegetables without sugar in the ingredients list. Sometimes this isn't a problem because the beneficial bacteria will eat the sugars, but it depends on how long they're fermented. You can eat low glycemic fruit on the cleanse. That includes all berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, you name it. You can also eat apples and avocado, lime, lemon, grapefruit, or kiwi. These fruits in particular are low in sugar, so they help to balance our blood sugar. You can eat nuts and seeds on the cleanse with the exception of flax seeds and chia seeds. So the reason those 2 seeds are eliminated is because they're mucilagenic, which means they can feed pathogenic bacteria, and we don't want that. Some people may be able to tolerate those seeds, but it's best to avoid them just because they can cause irritation in the gut. So many people are sensitive to nuts and seeds, mainly because they haven't been soaked to remove the phytochemicals and the seed inhibitors. Nuts and seeds can also go rancid very quickly, and they need to be refrigerated. That's why I like to buy my nuts and seeds at Natural Grocers, because they have them in the refrigerated section. The soaking nuts makes them way easier to digest. The problem with the phytochemicals are they actually block absorption of minerals into our bodies. So when you soak your nuts and seeds, you want to put in about 1.5 inches more water than nuts, and then you want to add the appropriate amount of salt, sea salt. I want to say a word about vitamin A. Our bodies depend on vitamin A for numerous biochemical functions. Proteins, minerals, and water-soluble vitamins cannot be utilized without vitamin A. It also helps to strengthen our vision, it builds strong bones and rich blood, and it's a powerful antioxidant, just to name a few. So if you look at the chart, you can see the amount of vitamin A in liver is off the charts. It is very different to get vitamin A from an animal source because it's more bioavailable and easier for the body to take in. If you're getting it from a vegetable source or a fruit source, it starts as provitamin A, which is also called carotene, and it needs to be converted in the body. But this can be hard for certain individuals, especially for the very young and old or people with a compromised thyroid. You can eat any monosaccharide vegetable during the cleanse. These are a large group of vegetables that are easy to break down because they're a single sugar chain. They include leafy greens like spinach, kale, and chard, and other leafy greens as well, or the bitter greens like arugula, and cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. Nightshades are allowed, but you want to check and see if you're sensitive to them, like many people are. These include peppers, tomatoes, and eggplants, and they do have a high lectin content, so I advise to cook them in a pressure cooker if you can, or if you ferment them, it helps to reduce the lectin content. You can also eat sprouts, radishes, carrots, any of those underground vegetables that are monosaccharides are okay. The most important thing when you're eating vegetables and buying your vegetables, make sure they're organic. On the cleanse, we are eating super clean, and you don't want to consume any pesticide residue when you're cleansing. So it's important to to check if you go to the farmer's market. Some farmers are not labeled organic because it's a very expensive process, but I have found farmers to be very honest when I ask. So definitely ask questions if you go to the farmer's market. It's no accident that people from around the world drink chicken broth when they're sick. Chicken broth is the closest thing to our intestinal lining, and it's full of collagen and amino acids that help strengthen our immune system and fight inflammation. There's a saying that a good broth can wake the dead. Here's a list of some of the many benefits of bone broth. It helps us to clear mucus from our bodies, opens respiratory pathways, gives us easily digestible nutrition, strengthens bones, teeth, hair, and nails. L-glutamine promotes weight loss. It improves hydration due to the electrolyte content, helps us to build muscle. It improves our mood, helps us to have clearer and healthier skin. It can also improve our sleep. It's anti-aging due to the high collagen content, and it can help relieve joint pain. On the cleanse, you want to try to drink 4 to 8 ounces of broth with each meal. You can drink chicken broth, bone broth, or vegetable broth. These are the oils and cooking fats that you can consume during the cleanse. You can have coconut oil, ghee, avocado oil, olive oil, MCT oil, duck or goose fat, or organic lard. So in particular, I want to talk about coconut oil. It has many uses other than cooking, but for cooking, it has a high burn rate. So it's an excellent thing to cook with. You can also use it on your hair and your skin. You can use it for oil pulling, among other things. Ghee is clarified butter, so all of the lactose has been taken out of the butter, the milk solids are taken out, and you have ghee, which tastes amazing. You don't even need to refrigerate it. It's my favorite thing to cook with, and it also has a higher burn rate. And olive oil is really important to get a good quality olive oil. And how do you know if it's a good quality? There are different labels. There's an international label where it's certified to be 100% pure olive oil. It's also important that it's fresh because the polyphenols are more active and alive the fresher the olive oil is. So it needs to be cold pressed. And when you take a sip of the olive oil, you should have a burn in the back of your throat. Animal fats have been very demonized, and there's been a huge low-fat craze. These saturated fats have been incredibly demonized, but they are quite good as long as you are sourcing them properly. So if you're getting lard, make sure it's coming from an organic farm where the animals have been humanely treated. There's been no antibiotic use, no bovine growth hormone. Things like toxins go into the fat areas of the body. So we want to make sure that we're getting a pure source.
I'm here to support you 100%. No question is too small, so please participate. You can post things on the group page, or you can email me privately. So I am here to support you. The group is here to support you. So I hope you have a wonderful healing journey on the cleanse.